Welcome to episode 2 of the podcast, Glory is on the Horizon. My name is Kason, and today's episode is called Cancel Culture versus Grace. Now, before we get started, I would just like to mention how I forgot to make last week's episode. Well, I didn't forget, I was really busy. So I apologize for that, and we should be back to weekly episodes every Monday. How should we approach a world that rarely forgives as Christians? Because one wrong tweet, one bad video from 5 years ago, or one wrong post, and the world is ready to erase you. But what is cancel culture? It's basically this idea that if I do something wrong, or controversial even, not even wrong, I would get canceled. It usually happens to people who have more of a following, so not me, or someone who has a bunch of influence around them. If they say something or do something wrong, even a long time ago and it resurfaces on the internet, they get canceled for it. Basically meaning that people will go after them and try to harass them and try to get them to give up on the internet, or even just not react to their posts completely, and eventually they'll just lose their following completely. As followers of Christ, how do we live in a world that rarely forgives without adopting its ruthless attitude? We'll see that today. Let's look at something called justice without mercy. Cancel culture often stems from a desire for justice or accountability. But that's not inherently bad. The problem is it leaves no room for grace, growth, or forgiveness. Here's the hypocrisy. This operates under the assumption that the accusers have never done anything wrong themselves. Let's look at 2 verses that apply to this. First, we'll look at Matthew chapter 7, verse 3 through 5. It says, "Why do you seek the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." Now let's look at the other verse, which is going to be John chapter 8, verse 7. And it says, "And as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, 'Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her.'" This sounds kind of confusing if you don't know the story, but basically the Pharisees were saying that we should stone this girl who was doing something really wrong because of what she did. So Jesus was saying, well, if you haven't sinned, then go ahead, throw the first stone. But he knew they all had sinned before. And later Jesus says, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on sin no more." Jesus is not canceling or stoning the girl. He's canceling or stoning, per se, the sin. Now I'm suggesting that we drop our rocks. You might be like, "Kason, that doesn't make sense." Well, basically I'm saying that instead of being the first to stone someone or cancel someone, we should just drop the rocks or stop trying to cancel them just because we want them to have their downfall because of what they did. Maybe they did something really wrong. Maybe it was terrible. But we should forgive instead of trying to attack them and make them feel miserable about themselves. God will handle that, not us. We should speak truth in love. It is good to try to condemn somebody if they're doing something wrong, but we should do it in a way to build them up and not tear them down. Go look at Galatians 6:1. The world says that you are the sum of your mistakes, but Jesus says otherwise. Jesus says you are forgiven. So drop your rocks and turn towards the cross. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for tuning in. It really means a lot. If you don't mind sharing, I'd appreciate it because then more people would tune in and listen to the message that I brought up today and in the future. So, like I said, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. But remember, glory is on the horizon.